The city lights of Earth shone bright in the night, but for the alien girl walking its streets, those lights felt cold. Her name was Leora, and she carried only a small bag and a heavy heart. She had traveled across the galaxy in search of work, in search of belonging, but no matter which door she knocked on, rejection followed her like a shadow. Humans stared at her strange skin tone, her large silver eyes, and the faint marks on her arms that glowed whenever she was nervous. Some laughed. Some whispered. Others simply shut the door before she could even speak. Leora came from a world where weakness was not forgiven. Her own people had turned their backs on her, calling her useless because she was not strong in combat, not skilled in the ways her planet valued. They told her she was a waste of space, and in shame she left. Now on Earth she faced the same rejection. She had nowhere else to go, but she refused to cry. Crying was for someone who still hoped. Leora had no hope, only the stubborn will to survive. Days passed. She slept in small corners of the city, surviving on scraps, always looking for work. She offered to clean, to carry, to serve, but every housekeeper laughed. "We don't need an alien maid," they said. "Go back to where you came from." Their words cut deeper than they realized, because there was no home waiting for her anymore. One rainy evening, when her stomach growled and her body shook from cold, she stood before the tall gates of a mansion. The iron doors stretched high above her, and beyond them she saw gardens lit with soft golden lights. This was no ordinary house. It was the home of Earth's most powerful billionaire, Alexander Veyron. His name was known across the world. Some called him a genius, others a tyrant. He had built empires, broken rivals, and shaped the future of technology. To the poor, he was a monster. To the rich, he was a king. Leora's heart pounded as she looked at the mansion. She had heard stories of people who worked there, how they were paid well but lived in fear of the man inside. Still, she pushed the heavy gate and walked up the path. What did she have to lose? At the door, the guards frowned. "What do you want?" one asked sharply. I seek work," Leora said softly, her voice trembling but polite. "I can clean, cook, or serve." "I will work hard," the guards laughed. "You, a maid? Do you think Mr. Veyron wants a creature like you touching his things?" The other guard smirked. "Better run away before you embarrass yourself." But before they could push her out, the head butler appeared. He was an older man, strict in his suit and expression. He studied her silently, his eyes narrowing. Finally he sighed. "We are short on staff in the lower quarters. She can clean the kitchens. If she fails, she leaves." The guards looked shocked, but they obeyed. Leora bowed her head in thanks, relief washing over her. She was finally inside. Her first days were hard. The staff mocked her behind her back. They left her the dirtiest tasks, the heaviest loads, the places no one wanted to clean. They expected her to break, to run away in shame. But she did not. Every morning she rose early and worked without complaint. Her hands grew raw from scrubbing floors. Her back ached from lifting crates, but she kept going. When food was offered, she ate little and saved the rest for later. When insults were thrown, she stayed silent. What no one noticed was the way she worked with quiet skill. Machines in the kitchen that others thought broken, she repaired in secret. A leaking pipe, a faulty light, even the old cleaning bots. She fixed them with a strange touch, blending human tools with knowledge no one else understood. She did it quietly, without telling anyone, because she did not want attention. She only wanted to keep her place. But someone was watching. From the high balcony of his mansion, Alexander Veyron often worked late into the night. His eyes were sharp, his mind always searching for patterns others missed, and he noticed her. The alien girl who was supposed to fail, the maid who never complained, the stranger who touched broken machines and made them work again, though no one had taught her. He did not speak to her. Not yet. Instead, he observed, testing her without her knowing. He ordered the staff to assign her harder tasks, more impossible duties. Still, she completed them. He wanted to see how long before she would break. But every night when others rested, she kept moving, quiet as a shadow. The staff laughed at her. They whispered that she was a fool, that she would be gone in a week. But as days turned to weeks, Leora remained. She remained when her hands were bleeding. She remained when her back screamed in pain. She remained because this was her last chance to prove, to herself more than anyone, that she was not useless. One night, as rain poured again and thunder shook the mansion windows, Leora stayed behind in the kitchen. The staff had gone, leaving her alone with broken machines and dirty floors. She knelt, her silver eyes glowing faintly as she worked on a broken system no one cared about. She whispered to herself in her alien tongue, wires sparking under her hands. From the shadows above, Alexander Veyron stood in silence, watching. His sharp eyes glinted with curiosity. He had seen many workers, many liars, many desperate faces, but this one was different. The billionaire leaned closer to the window, his voice low, almost amused. "Who are you, really?" The alien maid froze, her glowing hand still on the machine, and in that moment her quiet struggle was no longer hidden. The storm had passed, but silence still filled the mansion. Leora froze when she heard the voice. It was deep, sharp, and carried authority. Slowly she lifted her head and turned. Standing at the edge of the balcony above was a man dressed in black. His figure was tall, his face stern, and his eyes burned like steel. Alexander Veyron. The billionaire himself was watching her. Her glowing hand slipped away from the broken machine, and the light faded. Fear struck her chest. No one was supposed to see. If humans learned what she could do, questions would come. Dangerous questions. She bowed her head quickly, trying to hide her trembling. I was only cleaning," she whispered. Alexander descended the stairs with calm steps, his presence filling the room like thunder even though the storm had ended. He stopped in front of her, studying her face, her arms, her trembling hands. His expression gave nothing away. "You repaired this machine," he said flatly. Leora swallowed hard. "It was broken. I only tried to make it work. No one asked you to." His voice was cold. "And yet you did it." Why? She hesitated. She could not tell him the truth, that her alien knowledge allowed her to understand machines in ways humans could not. She lowered her eyes. "I wanted to be useful," she said softly. For a long moment, Alexander said nothing. He simply stared, his sharp mind working behind those steel eyes. Most people lied when he questioned them, and he always knew. But this girl's words carried a weight that even he could not ignore. Finally, he turned away. "Get some rest. Tomorrow you will have different tasks." He left without another word. Leora's chest tightened. She did not know if this was a chance or a trap. The next morning, her life in the mansion changed. Instead of scrubbing floors, the butler gave her instructions from Alexander himself. She was ordered to maintain old equipment in the lower labs, machines no maid had ever touched. The staff whispered behind her back, laughing that she would fail, that she would be thrown out. But Leora bowed her head and accepted. The labs were dusty, filled with machines too outdated for anyone to care about. She cleaned them carefully, fixed what she could, and moved quietly from one task to the next. Unknown to her, cameras in the corners watched every move. High above in his private office, Alexander studied the screens. He saw how she worked with patience, how she solved problems no one had explained to her. She never complained, never bragged. She simply worked, even when no one was watching. And Alexander felt something unusual, a spark of curiosity. He was a man who trusted no one. People smiled to his face but plotted behind his back. Partners tried to cheat him. Rivals tried to destroy him. Even his own staff served him out of fear, not loyalty. Yet here was this alien girl, a rejected maid, working with silent devotion as if the job itself was her only lifeline. That night, he summoned her again. "You understand machines," he said directly. "How?" Her heart raced. She could not lie too much, or he would see through her. She spoke carefully. "On my world, I was not strong like others. I could not fight. But I learned small things. How to repair, how to combine pieces, how to keep systems alive. That is all." Alexander leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. "They called you weak," her breath caught. How did he know? "They threw you away," he continued, his voice low but sharp. "And yet you survive. You are still here." Leora lowered her eyes. "Because I have no other choice." For a brief moment, silence stretched between them. Then something rare happened. Alexander's gaze softened just slightly. Memories of his own past crept in. He remembered being a boy, unwanted, abandoned before wealth and power had built his shield. He had clawed his way to the top, driven by the same fire he now saw faintly in her silver eyes. But he did not show his thoughts. Instead, he leaned forward. "From now on," he said, "you will report to me directly." Her eyes widened. The staff would hate her more for this, but she bowed her head. Yes, sir. The days that followed tested her in ways she had not expected. Alexander gave her tasks that seemed impossible. Rebuilding half-destroyed devices, cleaning rooms filled with dangerous tech, decoding instructions in languages she barely understood. Yet somehow she managed. She stayed up late into the night, her hands steady, her mind focused. Each time she succeeded, Alexander's interest grew. Each time she pushed past her limits, his sharp eyes followed closer. But the mansion whispered. Staff muttered in corners, saying the billionaire had gone mad to trust an alien maid. Some plotted to expose her mistakes, waiting for her to fail. Leora knew the danger. If she slipped even once, they would cast her out. Still, she worked. She worked because this was more than survival now. For the first time, someone powerful had looked at her and not dismissed her as useless. For the first time, she felt the weight of someone's attention not as mockery, but as a challenge. And yet, deep inside, fear lingered. She knew her secret could not remain hidden forever. If Alexander pressed harder, if he discovered the full truth of her alien knowledge, everything might collapse one night. As she repaired a complex system under his silent watch, he suddenly asked, "Tell me, Leora, if I gave you something no human could fix, would you succeed?" Her hands froze on the wires. She looked up at him, and in his eyes she saw more than curiosity. She saw a test, a trap, and perhaps a strange kind of trust. Her answer would change everything. The question lingered in the air like a blade. "If I gave you something no human could fix, would you succeed?" Leora's heart pounded. She felt the weight of Alexander Varen's eyes on her. His tone was calm, but there was something dangerous hidden beneath. He was not simply curious anymore. He was testing her, probing the edges of her secret. She lowered her gaze, pretending to focus on the wires in her hands. "I do not know, sir," she whispered. "But I would try." Alexander's lips curved, not into a smile, but something close. He admired honesty, even when it was small. "Good," he said quietly. "Tomorrow you will try." The next day, Leora was led to a locked chamber deep under the mansion. Heavy steel doors groaned open and cold air spilled out. The room inside was filled with strange machines, half-built, half-broken, like skeletons of forgotten beasts. Some hummed faintly, others sparked with weak energy. Alexander stood beside her, his hands behind his back. "These are failed projects," he explained. "Designs too advanced for my engineers. Expensive mistakes locked away to collect dust. Fix one, anyone. Show me if you are worth keeping." The staff who accompanied them exchanged cruel glances. They expected her to fail. A maid had no place in this lab. She was nothing more than a joke, and they wanted to see her humiliation. But Leora stepped forward slowly, her silver eyes scanning the wreckage. Among the broken frames and burnt circuits, she recognized shapes and patterns, alien shapes. Her breath caught. Some of these designs were not purely human. She knelt beside a half-dead device that looked like a generator. Its wires tangled, its energy core cracked. To the humans, it was useless. But to her, it whispered in a familiar language. She placed her hands on it gently, ignoring the murmurs of the staff. "Time is limited," Alexander said, his voice echoing. "If you cannot do it, leave." Leora worked in silence. Her fingers moved with care, weaving wires, adjusting circuits. She hummed softly in her alien tongue, words no human understood. The staff sneered, whispering that she was chanting nonsense. But Alexander leaned closer, his sharp mind recognizing patterns in her movements. She was not guessing. She was calculating, minutes stretched into an hour. Sweat gathered on her brow. At last, the core pulsed with light and the machine gave a low hum. A faint glow filled the chamber. The staff gasped. The impossible had happened. Leora pulled her hands back slowly. Her arms shook, but her eyes glowed faintly. "It works," she whispered. Alexander's gaze fixed on her. Not with anger, not with suspicion, but with something colder and sharper. "Interest," the staff protested. "This is a trick. She tampered with it before." "Enough," Alexander snapped. His voice silenced them instantly. He stepped forward, circling the machine. He touched the surface, feeling its faint vibration. It was alive again. She had done what his engineers, with all their resources, had failed to do. He turned back to her. "Who taught you this?" Leora hesitated. The truth was dangerous, but lying could be worse. She chose her words carefully. "No one taught me. On my world, I learned to survive by repairing things others abandoned. It is my only gift." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "Your only gift?" She nodded. Others were strong. I was not. Others could fight. I could not. So I learned this instead. I thought it was useless, until now. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The staff watched nervously, waiting for the billionaire's judgment. Finally, Alexander spoke. Then it seems your weakness is not weakness at all. The words struck Leora like a blow. She had spent her whole life hearing the opposite. Useless, weak, rejected. Yet here was a man of power telling her she had value. Her chest tightened, and for the first time in years she wanted to believe it. That night she was given a small room closer to the labs. The staff resented her even more, muttering that the billionaire had lost his mind. But Leora ignored them. She sat alone in her new quarters, staring at her trembling hands. She had revealed too much. If Alexander pressed harder, if he realized just how much alien knowledge she carried, it could destroy her. Yet a small spark of warmth burned inside. He had called her gift valuable. No one had ever done that before. Meanwhile, Alexander sat in his private study reviewing the data. The machine she had repaired was far more than it seemed. The designs were based on fragments of alien technology acquired in secret. His own best scientists had failed to understand it. Yet this maid had brought it to life in hours. He poured himself a glass of wine, his thoughts racing. Who was she really? What else could she do? Was she a spy sent to test him? Or was she truly what she claimed? A discarded child of another world surviving by scraps of knowledge? For a man who trusted no one, Alexander felt something strange. Not trust, but curiosity. And in Alexander Veyron's world, curiosity was dangerous. The next morning, he summoned her again. She stood before him nervously, her hands clasped, waiting for his judgment. You repaired one, he said. Now you will repair more. Her heart raced. Yes, sir. You will work under my eye, he continued. Not for the staff. Not for the butler. For me. The room fell silent. Leora bowed her head. As you wish. But as she left, Alexander's voice followed her. Do not disappoint me. If you do, there will be no second chance. That night, Leora lay awake in her bed. The billionaire's words echoed in her mind. She was no longer just a maid. She was something else now, though she did not know what. Her secret was no longer safe. Her gift had been revealed, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The days inside the mansion changed quickly. Leora no longer scrubbed floors or polished glass. Instead, she worked inside the hidden labs, surrounded by machines that looked half human and half alien. She repaired, adjusted, and breathed life back into them under the watchful eye of Alexander Veyron. The staff whispered even more now. She is dangerous, they muttered. No maid should touch the master's secrets, but Alexander ignored them. His attention stayed on Leora, watching how her fingers moved, how her silver eyes glowed faintly when she worked. Each success made his curiosity grow sharper. But outside the mansion walls, the world itself was beginning to tremble. It started as a strange energy fluctuation across several major cities. Power grids flickered, communication towers failed, and satellites began to drop from orbit like falling stars. Panic spread. Governments scrambled for answers, but none came. Alexander received a private message from his global partners. A massive energy core buried under Earth's crust had destabilized. It was ancient, not of human design, and if it collapsed, millions, perhaps billions, would die. Inside his study, Alexander slammed the screen shut. He knew this was no ordinary crisis. It was alien in origin. That night he summoned Leora. She entered nervously, her simple maid clothes dusted with oil from the machines she had been fixing. You called for me, sir? Alexander studied her silently for a long moment. Then he turned the screen toward her. Images of collapsing cities, failing satellites, and governments on edge flashed before her eyes. This is beyond human control, he said flatly. And I believe it is not beyond yours. Her throat tightened. She understood what she was looking at. That energy core was no accident. It was alien technology, something ancient and forbidden. Her people would never have let humans near it, let alone allow her to touch it. She stepped back, shaking her head. No, I cannot. I should not. Alexander's gaze hardened. You can. And you will. Leora's voice trembled. If I touch this, if I change it, the Galactic law will know. They punish those who share forbidden knowledge with humans. They will come for me. Then let them come, Alexander replied coldly. If you do nothing, Earth will burn. Do you want that? Her heart raced. She had lived her whole life rejected, abandoned, unwanted. She had no reason to save these people who laughed at her, mocked her, or ignored her. And yet she thought of the children in the streets, of the kind old baker who once gave her bread, of the quiet laughter of humans when they felt safe. Her voice cracked. I cannot decide. Alexander stepped closer, his eyes like steel. Decide quickly, because in 24 hours it will be too late. That night, Leora sat in her small room shaking. She touched her glowing arms and whispered in her alien tongue. She remembered her people's harsh words, you are weak. You are useless. She remembered the humans who turned her away. Go back to where you came from. But then she remembered Alexander's voice. Your weakness is not weakness at all. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She had never cried in front of anyone, but here in silence she did. Was this her chance to prove them all wrong? Or was it a path to her own destruction? She did not know. The next morning, the mansion was tense. The staff knew something was wrong. Helicopters roared overhead, military vehicles sped through the city, and the news channel screamed of global collapse. Alexander called Leora again. This time he was not alone. A group of world leaders sat on screens around the chamber, their voices filled with desperation. Is this the alien maid? One of them scoffed. This is your solution, Veyron? A servant? Alexander's tone was sharp as a blade. She is more than that, and she may be the only reason your cities will not fall to ash. Leora stood frozen. The eyes of powerful humans burned into her, full of disbelief and suspicion. She wanted to run. She wanted to hide. But Alexander's steady voice kept her rooted. Show them, he said softly. Show them what you can do. Her hands trembled. She knew the risk. If she touched this ancient alien core, the Galactic Council would sense it. They would come, but she also knew this was her moment, the moment that would decide not just Earth's fate, but her own worth. Slowly, she stepped forward toward the console that displayed the energy core's failing patterns. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, her voice whispering calculations in her alien tongue. The leaders gasped. The staff watching from the shadows whispered nervously. She placed her hands on the system. Sparks jumped, lights flickered, and the ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. And in that instant, she knew. There was no turning back. In the shadows of the galaxy, far above Earth, something stirred. Drones hidden in orbit turned their sensors toward the planet. Signals were sent across the stars. The galactic law had been broken. The news of Earth's salvation spread fast. Cities that had been on the brink of collapse suddenly stabilized. Satellites that had begun to fall drifted safely back into orbit. Power grids hummed with life again. To the world, it seemed like a miracle. To Alexander Veyron and his alien maid, it was not a miracle, it was a secret crime. Because in that moment, when Leora touched the ancient alien core, she had broken the galactic law. High above the skies of Earth, signals had already reached the Galactic Council. Enforcers were dispatched. Silent machines with glowing eyes drifted toward the planet, programmed to punish any alien who dared share forbidden knowledge with humans. They would not stop. They would not forgive. But down on Earth, inside the mansion's hidden labs, Leora worked tirelessly. She sat beside machines that glowed with strange energy, her silver eyes shining as she rewrote their codes and repaired their circuits. Alexander watched her with a sharp gaze, pacing behind her. His voice was calm, but beneath it burned urgency. They will come for you, won't they? He asked. Leora froze for a moment. Yes, the Council will not allow this. I have already broken their law. They will send hunters. Alexander's jaw tightened. Then we will be ready. Leora shook her head. You do not understand. Their technology is beyond yours. No human weapon can stop them. Maybe not, Alexander said, his voice cold but steady. But humans have something your council doesn't. We adapt. We refuse to kneel. He stepped closer, his eyes burning into hers. Teach me, teach us. If you give me your knowledge, I will give you Earth's resources. Together we will build something neither your people nor mine can destroy. Her breath caught. The weight of his words felt dangerous but also powerful. He was asking her to betray the galaxy itself for one world. For humanity. I cannot, she whispered. It is forbidden. Alexander leaned closer, his tone sharp. You already broke the law, Leora. There is no going back. The only question left is, will you face it alone or with us? That night they began in secret. The mansion's deepest chambers were transformed into hidden labs. Alexander diverted his wealth and resources, quietly bringing in rare metals, advanced computers, and human engineers sworn to silence. Only a handful knew, and even they worked blind, each on small tasks they did not fully understand. But in the center of it all stood Leora, guiding the work with her alien mind. She combined human tools with alien designs, her hands glowing as she shaped machines that had never existed before. Alexander stood beside her, not just as a master but as a partner. He asked questions, absorbed her teachings, and pushed her to go further. For the first time in her life, Leora did not feel useless. She did not feel weak. She felt necessary, but the burden was heavy. At night, when the labs grew quiet, she sat alone, staring at the stars. She imagined the galactic enforcers already flying toward Earth. She imagined their cold voices declaring her guilty, dragging her away, leaving this world broken. Her chest tightened with fear, yet every time doubt threatened to crush her, she remembered the faces of the humans she had saved, the laughter returning to their cities, the relief in their eyes. For them, she would keep going. One evening, as she adjusted a prototype in the lab, Alexander approached with something in his hands. It was a small device, half alien, half human. She recognized it immediately. "You built this?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said, "with what you taught me. It's not perfect, but it works." She held the device, surprised. Humans learned fast, but this was different. Alexander had taken her knowledge and already transformed it into something new. For the first time, she smiled faintly. "You learn quickly. And you underestimate humans," he replied. "We are not as weak as your council believes." His words struck her. They reminded her of her own people's cruelty, their belief that weakness should be discarded. Yet here was humanity, flawed and fragile, but refusing to bow down. Maybe that was their true strength. But as their secret alliance grew stronger, the shadow of danger crept closer. Reports came of strange lights in the skies, of ships seen in orbit, of signals humans could not decode. The council's hunters were near. One night, as the lab lights flickered, Leora suddenly froze. Her silver eyes widened. "They're here," she whispered. Alexander turned sharply. "How do you know?" "I feel them," she said, her voice trembling. "The council's enforcers. They have entered your system. They are searching for me." Alexander's fists clenched. "Then let them come. We are not done." But Leora shook her head, fear in her voice. "You don't understand. If they find me, they will not only take me, they will erase everything I touched. That means your machines, your world, all of it." Silence filled the lab. The glowing prototypes hummed around them, fragile promises of survival against a galaxy's wrath. Finally, Alexander stepped forward, his voice low but burning. "Then we will fight. Not because of power, not because of wealth, but because no one tells humanity who they are allowed to be." Leora stared at him, her chest tight. For the first time in her life, someone was not asking her to hide or to run or to accept her fate. He was asking her to fight, not alone but together. And deep inside, something shifted. For the first time, she wanted to believe she was not just a rejected maid. She was something more. Far above Earth, the enforcers' ships glowed like cold stars, their weapons armed. They had found the signal. The hunt had begun. The night sky above Earth glittered with stars, but hidden among them were cold, merciless eyes. The galactic enforcers had arrived. Their silver ships drifted in silence, cloaked from human radars scanning for the forbidden signal. Each one carried the authority of the council, and their purpose was clear: find the lawbreaker and erase the crime. Inside the mansion's underground lab, the tension was unbearable. Machines hummed, prototypes glowed, and human engineers worked nervously under Leora's guidance. Alexander Veyron stood tall in the center, his eyes sharp, his presence like steel. He had built empires on Earth, but this was different. This was survival against the galaxy itself. Leora's hands trembled as she adjusted. The last piece of the hybrid system, a great energy stabilizer, designed to shield Earth's core from collapse and repel alien interference. It was the culmination of weeks of secret work, combining human stubbornness with alien precision. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she whispered calculations in her native tongue. But her voice cracked with fear. They are close. I can feel them. They will not just take me. They will destroy this world to erase the knowledge I gave you. Alexander's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, placing one hand firmly on the console. Then we finish this before they arrive. Earth must stand on its own. The final test began. The stabilizer roared to life, filling the chamber with blinding light. Sparks danced along the walls. Power surged through the machines and the ground itself trembled. The human engineers panicked, stepping back. But Leora stood firm, her arms glowing as she poured her alien energy into the system. Her body shook violently, her breath ragged. The stabilizer was too strong for her alone. She had never attempted anything this large, this dangerous. Her people had called her weak, and perhaps they had been right. But then Alexander's voice cut through the chaos. You are not weak, Leora, not anymore. She looked at him, sweat running down her face. He had no glowing arms, no alien knowledge, no special gift, yet his voice carried more strength than any machine. For a moment her fear broke, replaced by something else, belief. She pushed harder. Her silver eyes blazed, her arms lit like fire, and the stabilizer roared even louder. The energy core stabilized, its wild pulse becoming steady. Earth's crust stopped trembling. Satellites above found their orbits again. Humanity had been saved for the second time, this time by a maid who had once been rejected by her own world. When the system finally calmed, the lab fell silent. Everyone stared in disbelief. Leora collapsed to her knees. Gasping for air, her body drained. And then, Alexander did something no one expected. He stepped forward, lifted her gently, and faced the cameras that streamed live to world leaders. His voice thundered with conviction. This, he declared, pointing to the trembling alien girl in his arms, is the one who saved your world. Not your armies, not your governments. A maid you rejected, an outcast her people abandoned. She risked everything for Earth. Remember her face. Remember her name, Leora. The leaders on the screens were stunned into silence. The staff who once mocked her could only stare, their mouths open. The engineers who had doubted her lowered their eyes in shame. For a moment the world held its breath. But then, the sky above Earth darkened. Through the clouds, massive shapes appeared, galactic enforcer ships, their hulls glowing with cold light. They descended slowly like predators circling prey. Their voices boomed across frequencies, echoing in every city. Lawbreaker detected. Surrender the alien. The punishment will follow. The humans looked to their billionaire leader. The staff panicked. Some whispered to hand her over before Earth was destroyed. But Alexander's voice cut through the fear. No. He stood tall, his arms wrapped protectively around the exhausted alien maid. She belongs to us now. You want her? You'll have to take her from all of humanity. The lab erupted in shock. Even Leora's eyes widened. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice weak. They will not hesitate. They will kill millions just to erase me. Alexander met her gaze, his steel eyes unwavering. Then they will learn what humans do when someone tries to take what we love. Across Earth, people watched the broadcast. They saw the alien girl who had saved them, and they saw the cold ships descending to punish her. And something stirred inside them. Anger, loyalty, unity. In the streets, crowds gathered. In cities, voices rose. Across every nation, humans stood together, their message clear. She is ours. Touch her and you face all of us. For the first time, Leora felt tears in her glowing eyes. Not from fear, not from rejection, but from something she had never known. Belonging. Above the planet, the enforcers calculated their next move. Their mission was simple, erase the lawbreaker. But their sensors showed something unexpected. Billions of human hearts beating as one, refusing to bow. The Council had always dismissed Earth as weak, divided, fragile. Yet here was proof that humanity was something far more dangerous, something unbreakable. And as the enforcers prepared their strike, Leora whispered in a trembling voice, "They will never forgive this. If you protect me, you declare war against the galaxy." Alexander's answer was simple, his voice low and steady. "Then let them come." The galactic enforcers hovered above Earth like cold giants, their silver ships blotting out the stars. Their voices thundered across every channel, their judgment clear. Lawbreaker detected. The alien must be surrendered. Humanity will comply. But humanity did not comply. Across the planet, cities lit up with defiance. Crowds filled the streets, holding signs, raising voices, shouting a single name. Leora. Soldiers who once guarded borders now stood shoulder to shoulder, declaring they would not hand her over. Children who had never met her whispered prayers of gratitude. For the first time in history, Earth was united, not by fear but by loyalty to a maid who had once been unwanted by everyone. Inside the mansion's lab, the air was electric. Screens flashed with images of protests, human voices roaring louder than the enforcers' threats. Alexander Varen stood at the center, calm but fierce, his steel eyes locked on the sky. "They will strike," Leora whispered, her silver eyes wide with dread. "They will wipe out millions just to erase me. That is the law." Alexander placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Then we change the law." She looked at him, trembling. "No one has ever resisted the council. No one has ever won. Because no one ever tried," Alexander replied. His voice was quiet, but it carried a fire she had never heard before. "They look at us and see weakness. They see fragility, but they don't understand what humans are. We fight hardest when we are told to kneel." The enforcers began their assault. Beams of cold light shot down from orbit, shaking the Earth. Skies turned red with fire as energy blasts struck oceans and deserts, testing human defenses. But this time, humanity was not helpless. The prototypes built in Alexander's secret labs roared to life. Hybrid machines, half alien, half human, rose from underground hangars. Energy shields powered by Leora's designs flared above key cities, blocking the enforcers' first strikes. Communication towers linked the world into one voice, no longer fractured by borders. The enforcers calculated resistance levels. What they saw did not match their expectations. Humans should have broken. Instead, they adapted. They fought back. In the command chamber, Leora stood before the console, her arms glowing faintly as she stabilized the shields. Sweat poured down her face, her body weak from pushing herself beyond her limits. "They will break through soon," she gasped. "Their weapons are too strong." Alexander stepped beside her. "Then we push harder." "You don't understand," she said, tears in her eyes. "I am not enough." Alexander looked at her, his voice like iron. "You are not alone. Look outside. Look at what you started. Humanity is with you. Billions stand behind you. That is strength the Council cannot measure." Leora turned to the screens. She saw humans across the planet, holding out against the impossible, standing not just for themselves but for her. Her chest tightened, and for the first time in her life, she no longer felt rejected. She felt chosen. Above Earth, the enforcers prepared their final strike, a weapon capable of erasing entire continents. The Council's orders were absolute: destroy the world if necessary. But as the weapon charged, something unexpected happened. Human voices broke through the frequencies, billions of signals overlapping into one. From radios, from phones, from satellites, from every corner of Earth, the same message reached the enforcers' cold machines. "She is one of us." The enforcers' systems faltered. Their logic circuits struggled. No world had ever spoken as one before. No world had ever dared defy the Council this way. And then, the stabilizer Leora had built flared with unprecedented energy. Fueled by both alien knowledge and human ingenuity, it pulsed like a living heart. The enforcers fired their weapon, only to see it bend, shatter, and collapse against Earth's shield. The impossible had happened. Humanity had survived the Council's wrath. Silence fell over the galaxy. The enforcers retreated, their mission incomplete. They sent fractured signals back to the Council, warning of a world too dangerous to underestimate. Earth had not only resisted, it had won. Inside the mansion, the lab erupted in relief. Engineers hugged one another. Staff who once mocked Leora fell to their knees, whispering apologies. Alexander stood tall, but his gaze was fixed on the girl who had made it all possible. Leora collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face. Why did you all fight for me?" she whispered. Alexander knelt beside her. His voice was calm but full of something rare, warmth. "Because you fought for us first. You gave us a chance when you didn't have to. You showed us what we could become. That makes you human in all the ways that matter." Her silver eyes glowed brighter, but this time it was not from fear or exhaustion. It was from joy. For the first time, she felt at home. For the first time, she belonged. Far across the galaxy, the Council sat in silence, their laws shaken. No world had ever defied them. No world had ever protected a lawbreaker with such unity. They would return perhaps, but Earth was no longer the fragile world they once ignored. It was a force to be reckoned with. and at the center of it all was the girl they had rejected, the maid they had cast aside. That night, as the skies cleared and the stars shone peacefully again, Leora stood on the mansion's balcony beside Alexander.